Welcome back. This is the second lecture for the second set, and we're talking about stress. Last time we spoke about chronic illnesses and your responsibility and what you expect from your body when dealing with chronic illness. So now let's talk about something that takes time to accumulate, time to get worse. So stress. We are living in a very interesting time. This is not something that is happening to only one country, it's happening to the whole world. So stress in 2021 has taken a whole new leap forward, and it's kind of refined itself. And we are living through a different type of stress, and we are losing access to some of the things that would have helped us deal with stress. So let's look at what's actually happening to all of us at the moment. So COVID-19 virus has caused a pandemic. And we are all exposed to constant need to be vigilant, to be careful, to distrust our fellow man, disconnecting people from families, disconnecting people from their social circles, and things that make them feel looked after, loved, and cared for, which makes stress worse. Also, it's changed the economy. So we have more stresses. And we're seeing images like this. And when you look at humanity and you think about our future and you think what we're going through now, these are very stressful images to be exposed to regularly. We're also exposed to constant updates of how bad things are going on social media and in the news and newspapers. There is not as much news as there used to be because things going on with corona, lockdowns, new variants, vaccinations, etc., is dominating the media, and we're constantly exposed to information. And the more exposure we're experiencing, the more that causes stress because it's fearful and it's uncertain. And people are isolated. We're alone in lockdown. We're not only alone on ourselves, we're all inside our own heads, but because of lockdowns and because of isolations and quarantines, people are alone. And we've learned to work online. Hello, we're doing a series of lectures online here. Yay, brave new world. But initially we kind of all pulled together. We're going to do this, yeah, and feel patriotic, and we were going to trust the system, and we were going to get in there, and it was going to be over in a reasonably short space of time if we could just all pull through. Unfortunately, there's been a wave and another wave and another wave, and people talk about COVID fatigue. It is true. People are tired of being good, and the novelty of sitting at home in your tracksuit pants and your shirt and tie and having a meeting online has kind of worn off, and you miss the guys at the coffee machine in the office, and you miss the interaction, and you miss the social lunches, and you miss having people around. Also, there's homeschooling to now deal with. So instead of just going to the office and the teachers deal with the schoolwork, you're now at home and you have to do homework, and you have to almost be a full-time teacher as well as doing all the work of your own online, and it's causing more and more stress. And some people, daycare changed. There was no longer somewhere that you could take your little people during the day and carry on with a successful work day. Now you had to be both, and that was causing a lot of stress for a lot of people. It takes, we spoke last time in the time about a 12-volt battery and how much energy you've got. Child rearing, you have to be patient. I remind parents constantly, you can't out emote a 3-year-old. You can't be more emotional. They will always generate more than you. So when they're feeling tired and ragged and have a wobbly, you can't have a wobbly back because you can never out wobbly them. And it's exhausting having emotional little people who respond to your own emotions around you constantly without enough help and support. Also, the domestic chores. This has been a big wake-up call for a lot of people. They didn't quite realize how much domestic assistance they had, and when it was no longer available, they seem like they're drowning in it. Keeping the house tidy, keeping the laundry done, keeping the family fed, etc., and keeping everything on track, and trying to hold down a job and do homeschooling. It started to pile on. And we're not living in the 1940s and 50s where your only dream in life is to be a housewife. It is not how we're programmed now. So it's causing a lot of stress, and it's causing a lot of depression, and it's causing a lot of people feeling isolated and people feeling exhausted and overwhelmed and burdened by their domestic chores. I don't want to. It's also, this time of stress has caused rifts to grow in relationships, and rifts that weren't there because you're constantly with someone. There isn't time to be apart and process what you're feeling, get some distance on the situation, and then go back and discuss it. Now it's like you're in a pressure cooker with yourself and with your children. And lockdown has been quite stressful on a lot of families. Things that you weren't really dealing with in the past have all reared their heads and come to say hello, and is causing a lot of stress. Teenagers, little people, parents were not aware of how serious some of the concentration issues or learning problems their children had were, and now because of homeschooling, they're completely exposed to that. And relationships, you're now spending a lot more time with your partner than you did in the past, and issues that you may not have been dealing with have become amplified. Also, children not being able to go to school. There was a lot of isolation for children. Their reliance on their social circle was very difficult for them, and we need to acknowledge how much stress that caused for children and for teenagers and for young people at varsity when they weren't able to interact with their social circle and their social group. It was very isolating, and it has had a profound effect on them mentally and emotionally. When the gyms closed, a lot of people who used to go to gym every day were not able to do so. And we weren't even allowed out our houses for exercise periods. And I remember everyone jumping up and down and saying, they just want to go for a walk. And the minute we were allowed to go for a walk for a few hours in the morning, the urge to do so disappeared. But a lot of people who relied on going to gyms to get their daily exercise, not just walking around and being really active, it became a bit of a problem. And if they use that as a source of relief for stress, I just need to go for a run and I'll feel better, or I feel so much better after my yoga class, and then you couldn't go to your yoga class and you couldn't go for that run. That caused a compounding effect on the stress, and it needs to be acknowledged that if you were using exercise as a way to deal with stress and then you couldn't, and it's sometimes hard if you've made that habit and then you couldn't go and you broke the habit. And if exercise in a gym situation or a formal setting is not something that you relish, it's a lot of people have sort of fallen off the wagon when it comes to exercise, which compounds the effect of stress on your body. No alcohol. Oh, the 3 months without alcohol caused a lot of stress for a lot of people. Very often people who work in a stressful work environment, an office, come home and they have a glass of wine or a beer. It's medicating yourself, but it's just taking the edge off, and not being able to do so. Also, the mental effect of not being able, knowing that you can't have that glass of wine at the end of the day, it caused stress to be exacerbated. And it was very difficult for a lot of people to cope. Very difficult. Then the food. Oh, people. Lockdown was not good for the waistlines of the world in general. It was easier to eat quick, easy food, which was very often low in vitamins, minerals, and high in calories and refined carbohydrates. So a lot of people have gained weight, and a bad diet gives you a lot of those sort of farinaceous foods, the carby things like pastas and breads and pastries and chocolates and cookies, and the baking section of every grocery shop in the country was denuded. You could buy oodles amounts of some things, but you couldn't get baking supplies. So for the first sort of 6 to 8 weeks of lockdown, everyone just dived into baking. And I know a lot of people who took up bread baking. Unfortunately, eating large amounts of that sort of thing is not a good idea long term, and you start to gain weight, and it adds a physical level of stress, and also the stress of not fitting into your clothes and the guilt of gaining weight. People are very hard on themselves, and the bad diet in the last year has actually made a huge difference to people's mental image as well. Unfortunately, it's going to take time for us to get back into healthy diet habits, and we have to make a conscious decision to do so. Then, because of the changes in the economy and lockdowns, a lot of people suffered with financial stress and inability to earn a living, and that caused another layer of mental anguish on top of all the other stresses that we were experiencing. And some are still dealing with that, and others are finding their way out of it now. But it's something that needs to be acknowledged, that this was a whole another level of stress. And then insomnia. Lots of people started suffering from insomnia, and we will talk about the chemistry involved in insomnia and how this happened and why people are suddenly now, for the first time in their lives, dealing with insomnia. Next time we will talk about insomnia. It's something I'm very, very seriously going to talk to you guys about. But lack of sleep is a big problem. You can go and Google the symptoms of chronic sleep deprivation syndrome, but not getting a good night's sleep means your ability to cope with stress in the day is going to be depleted, and bad sleeping patterns. Also, binge watching television and watching too much TV and staying awake because you didn't have to go into work the next day has also left people with bad sleeping habits that need to be addressed. But a sleep change, a negative sleep change, increases your body's ability to feel stress, produce stress hormones, and reduces your body's ability to cope with that and to get better from it. So it's something we need to definitely deal with as a topic on its own. I remind people that if you are, it's usually moms, to be fair, if you are the middle of your family, if you are the central caregiver in your family, you are not a spoke in the family wheel. You are the axle. All the other people in that family circle, in that COVID bubble, in modern times, the COVID bubble, if you are the axle of that family wheel, you need to acknowledge how important it is that you deal with your personal stress. Each of those spokes could get a wonk or a kink in it. The wheel would start to wobble, and it wouldn't be such an efficient wheel, and it would wobble along, but it would keep going. But if the axle of a wheel breaks because it hasn't been looking after itself and it hasn't been dealing with the issues that it needs to deal with and making sure that it is functioning as best it can, but to look after the axle, you're going to have a problem, because that wheel cannot run without an axle at all. It will come to a grinding halt. So you need to actually take time to look after yourself and acknowledge your own needs. That's very, very important. You need to look after yourself, not only for you, but for the other people that rely on you. And it is not selfish to do so. So COVID-19, coronavirus disease. This is people talk about PTSD after a war. What you must realize is that we are fighting a war. And we are having griefs, these losses of normal. We are all suffering from grief, because we are grieving for the normal lives that we had before. And it's not just what has happened because of COVID, but the fact that we don't have normal yet. The calm and the reassurance that comes with a schedule and a pattern and a routine that you can trust has been broken. And we need to acknowledge that it's almost a form of grief. And a lot of people have lost family members to COVID, and there is a collective grief that is occurring now. And we keep sharing negative information constantly. I would like to encourage you not to do so. If you have some ugly news or an ugly meme or a shocking statistic or something that's horrendous, please bear in mind who you're going to share that with and the impact that that information may negatively have on the person that you're sharing it with. That's very important. Don't share ugly stuff if you don't have to. If it's going to make that person's life better, fantastic, awesome. But they may be having a bad day. They may be struggling with something, and then you share something negative. Make you feel better, but you'll actually make them feel worse. So just exercise a little bit of restraint when it comes to sharing social media posts. And especially younger people can understand, because we've grown up like this. This is, especially millennials, this has been your reality always. There has always been social media. Please bear in mind that older folks do not have the filter that you do, and they are more vulnerable to believing almost anything that they are exposed to, because the media used to be something to trust. And it was a verified source. They didn't print anything in the newspaper or say anything on television unless they could prove it. On social media, everyone just has their say. Please bear in mind that what you read is not necessarily always going to be factual, and you need to fact check all of that information and take it with a pinch of salt. Then another thing that happened during the last year and a half is people's caffeine consumption has gone through the roof, and people are coping with situations where they wouldn't have coped before because they're running on a caffeine high. This needs to be addressed. It needs to be looked at. Coffee is not bad, but massive consumption can be helping you to cope when you should actually be looking at other ways to do so, and to acknowledge that you might not be coping without that caffeine. It has a lot of side effects, excess consumption, and they need to be addressed. Then let's look at some of the remedies involved, remedies that we use to treat stress and its effects on our body. Now, there are lots of remedies for stress. There are lots and lots. We're going to do the core, most important ones that you should be able to access and use the products that they are in. So, Pickac. Pickac is a remedy we use for exhaustion from grief and emotional stress. There is a sense of, I can't. What? People are tired. They are tired to their core and their very depth because of long-term grief, stress, worry. Now that sounds like everyone, and this is a very useful remedy at the moment because this is where a lot of us are right there. It's an inability to care anymore. Like I don't care, whatever. Just something else goes wrong, blah. And there's lots of memes to this. Lots. There's one about a field where if somebody grows their cares, and this field is barren. There's no more cares left in that field. They don't care anymore. There's dizziness that comes from exhaustion. There's a sense of lightheadedness with Pickac where you feel disconnected from the present. You feel lightheaded and you feel like floaty with stress. You feel light and disconnected and confused. There's a lot of confusion. Stress, emotional depletion. And then remembering things starts to get harder. And the little unnecessary details of the day, like whether you want to buy this brand or that brand, it doesn't matter. You don't care. And your brain and your body don't care either. Your hair starts to fall out. Stress hair loss. Pickac is a very good remedy for stress hair loss. And the appetite disappears. Remember we spoke about a 12-volt battery. Pickac is necessary when people have chronic stress and chronic reactions to stress, emotional stress, when I don't feel like it right now, thanks. I just, very often that happens with grief. The body has now said it doesn't want food. That is not a good sign. Sign that there is very serious bad reactions to stress. But on the other side, Pickac has a craving for clean, healthy fluids. So if a remedy could ever be said to crave the weird green juice that comes out of a juice extractor, this is it. They crave small amounts of healthy, clean fluid. And this is very good. This is an excellent sign that hope is there. But Pickac is for emotional grief. It's a very commonly used remedy. And at the moment, if I could put it in the groundwater, where could we find it? Now, remember in your notes, there is a dark underlined space next to the name of the remedy. And this is where you will fill in the product where you can find Pickac, where you could access the specific remedy and use it to help with stress. It's found in Stress Less Tonic. This is a liquid and you take 5 ml in the morning. It has a whole basket of remedies to help you cope with chronic long-term stress and to help with the stress of that day. So it has a long-term and a short-term effect. Then Califos. Califos is a mineral and it is a very commonly used remedy for stress. We use it often in practice. It's a tissue salt. It's tissue salt number 1. And Califos is for fried nerves. That's the expression I've heard people use, is fried nerves. In a patient, you often get to see they're worried about bad news constantly. Everything, the doorbell rings, someone's dead. The president comes on and they just know that it's lockdown 5 and it's a disaster and it's going to be bad again. There's this visceral sense that awful things are going to happen. It's not a nice place to be, and they're tired. They're very, very tired. And it translates into, it translates into irritability. They are mentally and emotionally exhausted from worrying all the time. They stress. People talk about, oh, I'm stressing. Yes, this is it. This is the remedy for you've been stressing so long and you're grumpy and irritable and you actually don't want people to need you anymore. You don't have any energy to give them. Please leave me alone. And you're tired. There's this, I can't concentrate, my brain's not working anymore, mental and emotional fatigue. Stress headaches, lots of tension headaches. Those ones that tighten up the shoulders, climb over the back of your neck, over the top of your head and squeeze. I want to push your eyeballs out your skull. Proper tension headache. This is an excellent remedy for people who get tension headaches when under stress. And frazzled nerves. There's a Speedy Gonzales cartoon, and this remedy is perfect for that. When people need Califos, they are on edge, they are jittery and jumpy, and they startle easily. And there's a lovely cartoon. All the gatus, all the cats are lying, all the Mexican cats are lying in the hospital, and they're all jittery and jumpy, and they're lying there all shaky, because Speedy Gonzales has been going, arriba, andale, and frightening them. And he comes into the hospital and he runs down the middle aisle and he shrieks his little like, andale, arriba, and all the cats go whoosh, and they stick on the ceiling. Now that is a Califos person. They are jittery and jumpy, and they're just waiting for the next thing to go wrong, and they don't think they can cope with anything. That's how they are. And they also get numb fingertips and clumsy. They drop things constantly, and they get so cross with themselves and irritable. They drop the car keys, and while they're picking up the car keys, they drop their glasses, and then they drop their cell phone, and they just that is Califos. People at the end of their tether. Where can you find this? It's in Serbo, which is a basket of remedies that are for exam stress, mental exhaustion, where you just can't anymore. It's like no more information will go in. I can't seem to concentrate, and feeling jittery and restless, especially at work. And then Nerviton 2. Nerviton 2 is a complex which is more for restlessness, irritability, stress, lasting several hours at a time. The remedy lasts very nicely, and you take it 3 times a day. And it's also used for stress insomnia. Then Stromonium. Now, when people see the next slide, they're like, oh, really? It's a bit much. This is how you feel inside. Stromonium is a very good stress remedy when stress comes out in the form of anger, or it comes out in the form of fear or nightmares. You are not dealing with the stress on a vocal form. You've sublimated it, and it comes out in your subconscious when you're sleeping, or it comes out in an inability to deal with your temper. So what you will find is road rage, and more swearing, and more aggression, and more defensiveness, and more the language of people who need Stromonium starts to change. They have aggressive language. And it usually happens after stress or exposure to anger or angry television. So you might see it in a teenager who is normally quite placid, and they watch an long series of binging television, and it's very violent. Their language starts to change, and they get more aggressive, and they get more violent, and they get more prone to angry outbursts that where's this coming from? It's the stress. And added on top of that is exposure to violence. And they get temper tantrums, and they start to stutter and stammer, and they start to feel more aggressive, and it comes out in their language, their posture, and their inability to calmly deal with a stress situation, especially driving or conflict resolution, where you feel cornered and aggressive when under stress. That's when Stromonium is a good choice. I love this picture. It's a perfect example of how a 2-year-old wouldn't want to control themselves. They just have an all-out thromby. They would throw a temper tantrum and lose it when in frustration. Whereas in adults, we don't see that, but you can feel it in yourself, the sense of aggression when exposed to stress. Stromonium is in Nerviton 2. The next remedy we're going to do is Pickac. I'd like you to notice those crystals. These crystals are very fragile and very easily broken. And this is a very friable remedy. They are on the rainy edge, but they are like that. They're exhausted. They're mentally and emotionally exhausted from stress, but specifically from overusing their brain. This is a remedy that comes up when people are exhausted and stressed from overstudying, overusing their brain. So too much bookwork, too much time on the computer, too much admin, and too many things on the go all at once that require your brain to work and function. The ability to concentrate starts to become affected. There's just too much. They've got too many fingers in too many pies, and they cannot keep everything going. They start to become dopey and disconnected from concentrating too much. You can't cram any more information. There's no more space. When your body is under a massive amount of stress, what happens is it prioritizes things that will help survival. And learning the Latin names of certain plants is not going to be given survival priority. So new information stops going in, and they find it very difficult to concentrate on things that aren't life-threatening or making them feel better. And they find it very difficult to remember new facts. It's mental and emotional exhaustion from overstudy. And they have a lot of back pain. There's a sense of heaviness in the limbs, heaviness in the back, and the sort of bruised, exhausted. It's not pain per se. It's more an achy, tired, heavy feeling. And that's when you need Pickac. Pickac is in Serbo. And yeah, you have concentration, exam stress. It's a very useful remedy to have for that. Then Natura Rescue. People talk about rescue remedy. It's different if it comes from Natura. Natura Rescue is just called rescue. It's not called rescue remedy. It's called rescue because it is not the same recipe as before. There are lots of rescue products on the market, but this one, which has been around since 1966, has a slightly improved remedy recipe. It's not just the normal 5 Bach flowers, it contains 2 homeopathic remedies as well. So it has a broader use and a broader spectrum of use and application in general. So the ingredients, we've got all 5 of our Bach flowers. Firstly, we have rock rose, and rock rose is for shock and terror. So that's the actual rescue and the shock application. Then you've got Clematis, which is for that sense of what's going on. It's for clarity. It brings the clarity into the present moment when in shock and sudden surprise. Then there's Cherry Plum. This is for balance. It's for balance and for calm. Always a good idea. Impatience. This is when people are under stress and they're in shock and they don't listen to others. They can't hear what someone else is saying because it's not happening fast enough. Get it done. I need it now. Impatience. Then Star of Bethlehem. This is, they are disconnected. This is a shock remedy. Nothing wants to work. No information wants to be processed. This is the one that helps you in a car crash or with massively bad, sudden bad news. This is the specific ingredient that is for that. Then there's Ambergris. Ambergris is a homeopathic remedy that Natura adds to the rescue, and it makes it a broader spectrum product. Oh, terribly sorry, my cell phone just went off there. Ambergris is for anxiety, massive anxiety. They feel frightened inside. They are, it's dreadful, dreadful anxiety and shock and fear, but very, very anxious. And then Melissa. This is the Zen ingredient. This is the one that helps you sleep after you've had some very, very bad news. This is the one that takes all that jittery brain behavior and just goes, just for now, let's sleep. And then we can deal with tomorrow. And these 2 additions makes the rescue an excellent product for a bigger range of things than just, I was in a car crash or I got some bad news. Let's talk about some common sense advice for when you're dealing with stress. We need to go in the sunshine. I know it's winter. And everyone goes, oh, but it's winter, it's cold outside. There are lovely days. We are not living in a snow-ridden -40 country. There are days when you can go outside. And the more sun hits your retina, the back of your eye, the more your body releases serotonin. So you get serotonin, which is I tell people it's the pink, happy, everything's fine, unicorns and butterflies hormone. You need it to be able to cope with stress. And the more sunshine you have, the better. Take your dark glasses off and look at the prettifuls around you. Go and sit in a garden for 5 minutes every day if you can. Wear a big coat if necessary. I'm not worried about the sun hitting your skin in this case. I want it to hit the back of your eyeball. Then please, 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 if you are dealing with stress, and which means you're a human being right now, please don't put things in the engine that are going to be hard and take extra energy to digest and waste precious resources. You need to eat a healthy diet. If you can't eat 3 healthy meals a day, that's fine, absolutely. But then go and get some juice. Go and get a vegetable juice. Go and eat more veggies than you need to. Try and replace one of those meals that had useless calories and have vegetables instead. Instead of having pasta with a sauce, have baked vegetables with a sauce. Find innovative ways to add veggies to your life. The more vegetables, the more live food that you eat, the more your body has building blocks to repair any damage that it is experiencing. Never mind the immune benefits and immune boosting and recovery benefits of having lots and lots of vitamins, minerals, and healthy things coming in your diet. You are what you eat is such a cliche, but it is a cliche for a purpose. Then please, oh please stay hydrated. When your body has enough fluid, it works better, it eliminates things better, it functions better, it's lubricated better, and your brain concentrates better and copes better emotionally when you are hydrated. Drink lots of uncaffeinated fluid. You can have caffeine, but please drink other fluids that don't contain caffeine, water preferably. Then take a break, take a guilt-free break. If you are the middle, you are the axle of your family wheel, you need guilt-free time for yourself to recharge your own batteries. And guilt-free, and I do mean that, guilt is a very bad emotion. It eats away at us. So you need to say, right, I'm having this time, and I'm not going to feel sorry for doing so. Then please try and reduce the amount of irritating noises in your environment. It sounds like an odd thing to say. Phone your neighbor who has that dog, and phone again and phone again. Be nice about it. I know you want to climb over the wall and make bad decisions, but if there is construction going on in your work environment, if there are screaming little people, find a way to reduce your exposure to unnecessary noise. It's a torture technique. Noise, 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 noise. It eats away at your sense of calm and peace and increases your stress hormone production. Earphones. Close the door, close the window, close the curtains if necessary. Move to a different part. Speak to the people making the noise. Try and deal with the noise if you're the source of the noise. But try and reduce the unnecessary noise pollution in your environment. It really does make a difference to how much stress hormones you release on a daily basis. Listen to music. This is universally acknowledged as an enormous reduction in stress. It helps. It really does help. Put some nice music on in the background. Now, nice music is different to every person, but there is an emotion that comes, there's an emotion that comes with every type of music, and you need to acknowledge which music you are dealing with. So if you feel revved up from a specific type of music, ignore that type of music when you need calm. If you feel irritated by, say, opera, don't listen to that. If you find rap music difficult to cope with, don't listen to that. If you feel like when you listen to rock and roll, fine, fantastic. If that part of your life is, if that's the occasion for that, then go with it. But soft, calming music when you feel the need for soft things that make you feel understood and that feel that are part of your enjoyment of life. So not just any music. Choose music that means something to you. Then dancing. Hey, lockdown was wonderful for this. You didn't have to go to a nightclub. You could bop around in your, I'm giving away my age by saying bopping, but you can dance in your own space. Dance like nobody's looking. Well, nobody is looking. Nobody cares about what you do in your own home. So dance around. You might feel like an idiot, but you'll also feel fantastic afterwards. It releases large amounts of dopamine, and it is a very good way of dealing with stress. And it's also if you do it with family members, if you do it with people you feel safe, you actually bond. You bond over the silly, and we need more silly in our lives nowadays. We really do. And counseling. If you're having strugglings with your family members, if you are dealing with an issue that nobody is acknowledging, or one side wants to fix and the other one doesn't want to, there are myriad problems that counseling can help. It is available online. If you are in isolation and you cannot get out, please speak to an online counselor. See if you can have counseling and deal with those issues. Don't let them fester, because underneath the layers of today, there's the long-term stresses that relationship issues can bring. And you really should try and deal with them. As soon as you acknowledge that they're there, they need to be dealt with. Then sex, people. This releases fantastic hormones that help our bodies to cope with stress. There's a reason there were lots of babies born after the Second World War. Lots and lots. So please, if you haven't thought about it in a while, get on this. Self-service in a couple, doesn't matter. An orgasm is excellent for dealing with chronic stress. Then, if you have chronic health issues, please don't ignore them. They add to your daily burden of discomfort. If you have a problem, deal with it. Seek medical assistance for whatever is wrong with you long term. If you're suffering from insomnia, we're going to talk about that next week. Please, this is an urgent matter. If you're not doing the daily filing of your brain's thought processes, you need to be dealing with them. It helps you cope with stress. It helps you concentrate. And when you can concentrate and work effectively, the buildup of long-term stress will start to be less. Then, if you have a teenager, if you have someone young who is developing their own self-image, please deal with any stresses that might be happening to them because of a health issue. If they have acne, if they have hair that's falling out, if they have a back problem, if they have a problem with their menstrual cycle, if they're having headaches, please deal with these things as a matter of urgency. I know they can keep going, but they shouldn't have to if there's a way that you can deal with them. And then chronic pain. Please deal with chronic pain issues. I know a lot of people, if you're the middle of that family, you just ignore it and keep going. There's going to come a time when you can't, and it will be a bad time to have that happen. So deal with chronic pain issues. Go and see a chiropractor, go and see a physiotherapist, go and see a specialist, speak to homeopath. Please go and deal with it as a matter of urgency. Don't just ignore it. And then, if you know you're being a grumpy, don't go and spread the grump with other people. You just make their stress burden worse. I know it's nice to share, but sometimes you need to be aware of what you're sharing, and it doesn't help to spread the grump around. So just acknowledge where you're at the time. If you're going to go and visit a friend and just go all over her and over a cup of coffee, please be aware that you are not helping her. You are not making her daily burden any better. Sometimes we get into a negative spiral, and you need to acknowledge those negative thoughts, acknowledge that negative spiral, and say, right, I'm actually going to make a conscious decision not to be the grumpy today. And every day you make that decision is a good one. But this has been the stress. We're going to talk about insomnia and a little bit more stress remedies next time. Thank you very much for joining us. And if you have any questions, please put them in the chat or let us know on Facebook. And we are there to answer any and all questions about this. The pandemic is not over. We are still dealing with a lot. And it's going to change as time goes on, but we need to acknowledge our stress and to help our body to cope with it better and to start healing the stress that has been there. So make good choices and choose the right remedy. Thank you.